Hi, this is Staff Sergeant Adam Ross, Public Affairs NCOIC for 19th ESC. We've got a great podcast episode coming up of the Every Soldier Counts podcast. We're going to talk with the 19th ESC retention team of Sergeant Major Adam Bartlett and Master Sergeant Matt Savage. We cover a lot of great topics here, way outside retention, touching on quality of life, things the Army can do for you. So listen up, we got a great episode of the Every Soldier Counts podcast right now.
Welcome to the 19th ESC Every Soldier Counts podcast.
Wherever you find American troops today, you'll find the men of the Transportation Corps. Enough and on time. That's the story we tell you today. The story of the Army Quartermaster Corps.
These youthful servicemen are members of the Army's Military Police Corps.
One of the most important forces behind the lines, the Army Ordnance Corps.
Welcome again to the 19th ESC Every Soldier Counts podcast. I'm, of course, Staff Sergeant Adam Ross, Public Affairs NCOIC for 19th Expeditionary Sustainment Command. We have another great episode for you today. Joining me in the studio is the 19th ESC retention team of Sergeant Major Adam Bartlett and Master Sergeant Matt Savage. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us. Appreciate it.
So we're going to, like we usually do, we kind of delve into get to know you a little bit, get to know your background. So, Sergeant Major, let's start with you. So what led you to enlist in the Army? What was your original MOS?
So I enlisted in January 2001, came in as a 77 Fox Petroleum Supply Specialist, which is now a 92 Fox. So did basic training at Fort Jackson, AIT at Fort Lee, truck driving school down at Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri, and then I reported to the mighty 101st Airborne Division Air Assault in 2001.
So you got that patch quite a while ago then, on your right side.
I did. I participated in the initial invasion into Iraq, OIF-1, back in March 2003.
Good stuff. Okay, Sergeant Savage, how about you?
Well, I enlisted 2 years after this fine gentleman as a 92 Fox, so the Army did not like what they called him, and so they changed it, I guess. So we were both fuelers, same kind of path, except for me, I went to the mighty Airborne School, and then I went and served the next long amount of time as in the USASOC world as a paratrooper and petroleum supply specialist working in that environment. Very different from 101st, but very broadening too, because we didn't have all the aviation assets and everything. So it was very interesting. You know, I joined the Army because I had no clue. I graduated high school on a Friday, and that Monday I looked at the Coast Guard. They were closed, and Tuesday the Army was open. I should have joined the Coast Guard maybe.
Yeah, I was going to say, you almost so close to joining the Coast Guard.
Right.
Well, I want to say, are you the only soldier in 19th ESC with the Halo wings?
I am not the only soldier in 19th ESC with Halo wings. Chief Gilmore is also a free fall jump master in the DMC, but I am the only career counselor in the Army. Halo and Halo Jump Master qualified.
Really? So can you tell us a little bit about that school? That's kind of one school that maybe people have heard about, they don't know too much about.
Yeah, so it's we use Halo loosely because it's high altitude, low opening. It's got a good catch, and like all good things in the Army, it's an acronym, right? But it's actually the United States Army Military Freefall School, not to be confused with skydiving, because what military freefall is basically consists of is work. It is to infiltrate an objective from roughly 25,000 feet or above under full combat load, which is commonly referred to as a wall locker jump, but you're also under O2. So oxygen supply, everything, because when you go up that high, you have to be under an oxygen because the plane is obviously not compressed. So it's decompressed. So you're on thin air, so you're breathing oxygen and you jump. So it's a predominantly special operations type school for Special Forces soldiers, select riggers, and then every now and then you get soldiers that win a Soldier of the Quarter, Soldier of the Year board, and it's been given out as an award for that, and that's how I received it when I was a Career Counselor of the Year for Special Forces Command.
So you were a career counselor when you went to
Yep.
that. That's interesting. Okay. All right. Well, with that, we if you hear that sound, this means it's time to change things up a little bit. We're going to go to our 50-meter target portion of the show, and so these questions are going to come quick. Just ask that you respond quickly, like when the 50-meter target comes up. So no peeking. So Sergeant Major, we're going to start with you. If you were to open a restaurant with your cooking, what would be on the menu?
Well, I have to start with my favorite pepperoni pizza. I'm from the Chicago area, so we like ours cut in squares, not in traditional slices. Extra pepperoni, extra cheese, but it would definitely be a pizza restaurant with some fine beer, I'm certain. Yes.
Okay, and Sergeant Savage, if your restaurant was next door, would you be able to get more customers
Yes,
with your cooking?
I would. It would be bourbon and small plates. That's it.
Okay. So stay with you, Sergeant Savage. You're going to a desert island. You're banished to a desert island. We won't get into the reason why. You can only bring one TV show with you. What is it?
24.
Okay. Sergeant Major, how about you?
Mine is actually 24.
Okay.
I've been watching Jack Bauer of late, so yes.
Okay, some symmetry from retention. We'll see if that continues. Okay, same situation, Sergeant Major, but you can take only one musical artist to listen to your entire stay there.
It's going to have to be Tupac.
Okay. Are you gonna match him on that?
You know, I was going to say Wu-Tang, but I don't know if Wu-Tang is one musical artist if I'm going to bring the whole crew. But I'll go with Biggie because maybe we're on the same mile and we can mend some things that were wrong. So I'm going to go that route.
Okay. So Sergeant Savage, you are Sergeant Major of the Army for one day. You can make one decision to make the Army better. What is it?
It's not going to be beards for men. It would... I think it would be wearing headphones while we're running for the ACFT.
Okay, Air Force does that, I think,
right.
If you're on a track. Yeah. Sergeant Major?
That's a bit of a tough one because I have a lot of things that run through my mind. However, I'm going to say beards.
Really? Okay.
Yes, absolutely.
All right. So staying with you, Sergeant Major, what was your whole Army career? Do you remember an APFT you took with the absolute worst weather? What were the worst conditions for an APFT for you?
Worst APFT for me were at Fob Shank, Afghanistan, about 7,000 feet up after going there from Savannah, Georgia, which is probably below sea level. It was cold, it was windy, and it was hard to breathe. So, yes, definitely. Fob Shank, Afghanistan.
Sounds wonderful. Sergeant Savage, how about you?
Mine was also in Afghanistan. It was a day like we decided, hey, we're going to do APFT tomorrow. And tomorrow came and it was the worst wind, cold storm with sand, snow, and everything in between. And I'm like, this can't be real. Like, you couldn't see the person running in front of you. We still did it. So
I was lucky enough to take an APFT on Kandahar before they cleaned things up there. So, I got the full sensory experience with that. Okay, last one. So staying with the game show theme we have here, Sergeant Major, if you had to pick one game show where you would just absolutely crush it, what would it be?
A game show that I would crush would probably be Family Feud.
Okay, with the Bartlett family?
With the Bartlett family. Even my 7-year-old, we'll get her in there too. Okay. Family Feud.
How about you, Sergeant Savage?
Oof. Guys, grocery games.
Oh, okay.
I'm all about shopping.
I forgot about that one. All right. Well, you both have you shot expert on 50-meter targets. Thank you for that. We're gonna take the music back down and get into more of the meat and potatoes of the retention world. So, one thing, you're called career counselors for a reason. So, what do you? Either you can respond to this. So, let's talk about making informed decisions for reenlisting. How do you play in the counselor aspect of that?
So for myself, I tell people all the time, I've never asked a soldier to reenlist or told them to reenlist. Reenlistment is a personal decision. It's a family decision, and obviously it's a command decision in certain cases. So for me, I tell them to look at their entire life, where they are at this point of their life. Sometimes we get folks who, staff sergeant 10, 11 years in, but just finished a master's degree in finance, which was the case of a soldier I had when I was at Rock Island. There was nothing that I could offer that person. It would have been criminal, really, for me to tell that person to stay in the Army at that point. They were single, had no spouse, no children, no responsibilities, had just completed a master's degree in finance. Then sometimes we get the soldier who comes in and has the opposite situation, married, children, no degree, and you say, hey, well, what are you going to do? I'm going to get out and go to school. And you look and you say, well, how are you going to support said family, or what's the rest of the family dynamic? So I inform it from all of those perspectives. I'm more a conduit. I am somebody who facilitates the reenlistment, but the actual decision to stay Army rests with the soldier command and family.
Yeah, I think, my perspective, I had the opportunity to be a recruiter before I became a career counselor. So out there, I was asking people to join the Army. And that was really rewarding for me because, like Sergeant Major said, you met people that had different walks of life, right? You don't know where everybody comes from. And I think that's the most valuable lesson NCOs today and platoon leaders, right? At that level, platoon sergeant, platoon leader level, they don't know where their soldiers come from. And it's their job to really figure out where they came from. So for me, I was realizing everybody's different. So I tell them about the Army, and it was the only job in the world that I know where you're selling something that nobody can touch, taste, see, test drive, feel, nothing, They're going off my word, and they're joining, right? As a career counselor, it's very different. I'm going to thank you for your service. First question I'm going to ask is, why did you join? Did you get what you wanted out of the Army? And if not, is there anything I can do to assist you to getting that with continued service? If the answer is no, I'm still going to thank them from their service. I think that's the biggest misconception is we're out here to just put numbers on the board, but that's not the case. 19th ESC is doing a phenomenal job. We're keeping people in the Army. We're number one in the Army at that. So, for us, it's more about we're going to ensure every eligible soldier gets counseled and gets the options that they deserve. Because I know when I was a junior soldier, that's what all I wanted to know is, what can I do? Too many times do I see people that say, my career counselor didn't tell me this, or the retention guy didn't tell me this, or, I had no clue I could do that. I don't want that to be a second order effect of Master Sergeant Savage or Sergeant Major Bartlett didn't tell me that. I'd rather we tell them everything and then let them, as he said, make an informed decision. So that's kind of my MO. It's been that way since I came off recruiting duty. So I saw it from a different light because I saw where people came from. So now I don't need to beg people to stay in the Army. They joined, they served. We're in Korea right now. Every male here does 2 years. If we could get every male in America to do 2 years, life would be great. People will stay. People enjoy it, but I'm just thanking people for serving.
That's a really good way to put it. And you talked about giving them, what you can give to the soldier. One of those things you can help them with is reclassing, getting a new job. There's tons of MOSs in the Army. What are some misconceptions maybe about reclassing or frequently asked questions you get?
I would say the biggest misconception of reclassing is that it's really easy. I say that, and I'll give back to my recruiter days is, that was what they taught us in recruiting school is like, hey, make sure they pick a job, and if they don't like it, tell them in 2 years they can reclass. So I was like, oh, that must be easy. Now, I had already been in the Army 5 years at this point, and I've never reclassed, but I'm in recruiting, and I can go be a 79 Romeo, so I was like, oh, maybe it's right. So when I became a career counselor, then I realized it's not that easy. Reclassification falls under really three things. And every soldier, if they meet these three things, you can. The number one is do the strengths of your current MOS allow you to reclass? Is there training available for the MOS you want? And do you qualify for the MOS you want? If all three of those line up, then reclassification is easy. It doesn't matter if you reclassify as a re-enlistment option, which is called Army training, or if you reclassify outside the re-enlistment window, and that's just called a reclassification. The difference is one you process with a 4187, the other one you process with a re-enlistment contract. And I'll go further on that is just there are multiple MOSs that it doesn't matter the strengths of your current MOS. But it's funny because those are the MOSs that not everybody wants to do. So you have Special Forces, you have Civil Affairs, you have PSYOP, right? You have the contracting NCO 52. So you have those MOSs that are available, prime power specialist, Army diver. But, those are the hard ones. So it makes it, well, I don't want to reclass into that. So I'll help you reclass, but we have to look at it. And, if you're going from an understrength to understrength MOS, that's where it gets tricky. Because if you're an 11 Bravo that's understrength, right, we might be understrength 300 soldiers, but realistically, there's 1,000 of them. If you go to, we'll say, a small MOS like 12th Papa, they're understrength 50 soldiers, but there's only a strength of 75, right? So they only have 25 soldiers. They are exponentially more understrength, even though 11 Bravo has more slots they need to fill. So that one would make sense. But if it was flipped, they were at 12 Papa trying to go 11 Bravo, we're not going to support that, because the Army needs to fill those priority holes. So that right there is where that's the hardest part of my job, is to help somebody understand, if you do this, it's going to hurt you, and that's what HRC looks at. They look at actually what is the promotion potential if we allow this soldier to reclass, if we approve the exception to policy. Are they going to get promoted? Are their current points comparable, commensurate with the other soldiers of that same grade and the new MOS? If it looks like they're going to get hurt as far as promotion and advancement, we're not going to approve it. And that hurts soldiers because, well, the Army doesn't care about me, but we do care. We care a lot about you. It's just the benefit is not worth the risk. We're not going to put you in a position where it's going to hurt your career longer, even though that might be the job you really want to do. So that's the misconceptions of reclassification and the down and dirty of, hey, if you get those three things right, 99% of the time you're going to be able to reclass. It's just for those weirds, if they're too understrength MOSs, where it gets weird. But if you're in an overstrength and you want to go to an understrength MOS, no issues. We process them all the time, but you have to meet the qualifications for the new MOS. And that's where a lot of folks, especially in Korea, if you have to take a college class, if you have to do certain things, well, we're only here for 12 months for some people. So you might not be able to knock all that out. And then if you're on orders, you can't process a reclassification. So you get on orders here, it could be 4 months in, it could be 12 months in, So if you're on orders, you can't process a reclassification. So that's where I would say it's a little unfair. But, reach out and talk to your career counselor as soon as possible. As soon as you think you want to reclass, talk to somebody.
And I think, so my take from that is you need to be actively looking at your career, way before your reenlistment window even comes up. So, it can't all be just jammed into the last, 5 months, before you reenlist, maybe.
Right. So I would add on to that to say that anybody can do almost anything, but not everybody can do everything, right? And so one of the biggest challenges we have, and that I've seen in my time as a career counselor, is the expansion of technology, social media, websites. And Sergeant Savage and I just were taking a look at a Facebook Live event for ArmyReenlistment.com. ArmyReenlistment.com is a great source of information. I know the owner of it personally, support him in his endeavors. But one of the biggest challenges I faced, especially when I was in an infantry battalion where I had 1,000 soldiers in that command, a lot of people self-counsel before they come into the office. And so you have Army Times saying anybody wants to be an astronaut or whatever the case may be. And now we spend an hour trying to explain to somebody why they can't do that opportunity that they just saw, which said that, UAV operators are needed throughout the Army. Okay, great. However, you might not have the line score. You might not have the clearance. Just all the different factors that go into doing kind of those jobs. So it's managing expectations, and it all comes down to needs, wants, and desires. We listen to people's desires, got it. If we can make those happen, that's great. Wants, okay, yep, if we can do it, that's great. But now we're kind of into that kind of, they have something that they have to overcome in order to get it. what the soldier might need in their career might not be what they want or desire, i.e. the person who wanted to go to college when they ETS'd, but didn't have a plan on how they were going to support their family. Your desire might be to be a doctor, and you might want to go to medical school, but right now you need to feed your family, which the Army provides with benefits and stuff like that.
And speaking of college, one benefit that you guys factor into a lot is the post 9/11 GI Bill. Like if a soldier maybe wants to pass it down to a dependent, they oftentimes need to talk with career counselor. What can you tell me about the kind of things you talk to soldiers about with post 9/11?
Yeah, so our job used to be to approve every post 9/11 transaction, or we would go in and literally have you sit at our desk, do the transfer, we'd re-enlist or extend you, and then we would approve it right there on the spot. Now it's a little different. Now we monitor the actual website for the post 9/11 GI Bill and see who in our command has submitted the request and if it's been rejected or approved. Anyone that's been rejected, it usually is rejected because they don't have the service remaining requirement, and that's 4 years. So what we have changed is now I counsel every soldier that has 6 years in the Army. If they come in my office, if they're in processing, out processing, or re-enlisting, and they have 6 years on that day or more, I'm going to talk to you about the post 9/11 GI Bill. And I believe I'm a great person to ask about it because I've seen 3 sides of the post 9/11 GI Bill. I'm the service member, right? So I originally paid my $1,200 in, and I know how to get my money back. But all 36 months of the post 9/11 GI Bill have to be used. And if there's 3 days remaining, they got to take some kind of course, pay out of pocket for the 27 days or whatever is remaining to get the $1,200 back. I transferred it to my my ex-wife at the time and my daughter. And I also saw that my ex-wife, she didn't do so hot in her classes, and you actually have to pay that back. So it's just like TA. So I tell soldiers, hey, if you transfer this, you can give everybody 1 month. That's our recommendation, is give everybody 1 month, and you can go in and manipulate it. So when she and I got divorced, we had an agreement, let's just give all of our college to our daughter, and that's what we did. And that, to me, was real important. Now my daughter's college is paid for, and I received, my master's degree while I was in. The Army's paid for that. So for me, it's been really a reward. So when I talk to soldiers, I say, hey, have you thought about transferring your education? And they say, well, no, I think I'm going to use it. And I said, well, how much college have you taken while you've been in the Army? Well, none. Well, why not? Oh, I don't have any time. I said, well, there's 24 hours in a day. Like, what are you doing with your 24 hours? I hate to say it like that, but I made my own time to ensure I was taking college classes. And the direction the Army is going, we have to change the culture. And Sergeant Major and I talk about that a lot, is that we understand civilian education is important. We have to, as enlisted soldiers, be commensurate with our officer counterparts almost, as advisors. So, and we're working with them. So we should be getting associate's degrees. We should be getting bachelor's. We should be striving to get a master's degree. And if we're doing that, then transfer your education benefits. I am a big advocate of it. I don't force anybody. I don't grab them and say, you're going to do this. But they go in and they submit it. And so if you submit it and you don't do it in conjunction with the reenlistment, the only thing you can do is extend now to meet the 4 years. So we've kind of had to change policy a little bit on how we do that. But there's a lot of rules behind it too. And one of the coolest rules, I think, is if I transferred it and I have more children before I retire, those children, as soon as they hit my DEERS, I can give them months as well. So once you transfer it once, it's transferred. You've already committed the 4 years. You don't have to commit any more time every time you change it. So that's why Sergeant Major and I, we are very clear when we brief anyone is at least transfer 1 month so it's done, and you've committed the time. And if you do it in conjunction with a reenlistment, well, then it's hand in hand. You don't have to worry about extending, or do I have enough time?
And
If I could add one thing on that, just to highlight something that Sergeant Savage said. So if you die and you have not transferred it, then the benefit dies pretty much with you. And that's why we're hot on, the 1%, 1 month at least, to transfer it. Point number 2 that I would make is one of the biggest confusions is, let's say Sergeant Major Bartlett is single. No dependents, nothing like that. I can utilize I can elect the post 9/11 bill, GI Bill, for myself. So you have the portion of it which is awarded to the service member, and then you have the actual transfer portion of it. So oftentimes service members get confused and they think, oh, well, how do I utilize the post 9/11? I don't have any dependents. You can still utilize post 9/11. What we're talking about is the ability to transfer that. And just because words do matter, Master Sergeant Savage said manipulate the system. You don't manipulate it. You can go in there and move the months around, which I know that's what you meant, but he said manipulate, so we just want to clean that up.
And I was going to say the Meal Connect website where you do all that, like, this isn't, having used it a lot myself, like, this isn't one of those old school websites that's hard to figure out. It's very user friendly, and it'll actually tell you, like, how much time you have left on that with those 4 years before it's officially like yours to do what you want with.
And that website, if you PCS ever, and you go to a new unit, they tell you to go publish your updated info on the GAL, right? The global address list. It's the same website. Mm-hmm. I mean, the next tab down, it says transfer of education benefits. And you click on that, and then you just follow the process.
Right. And just to clarify, you can utilize it once you transfer it.
Right.
You don't have to wait the 4 years for the service remaining requirement in order for that person to start utilizing it. But one thing to be cognizant of, if you are removed or separated from the Army for misconduct or something along those lines, and a portion of that benefit has been used, then you're obligated to pay that back.
Right.
It's treated just like a bonus, like if you don't fulfill that contract.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep. And I think the last thing is spouses can use it instantly, and then children can use it after 10 years of service. So that's the only, if you already have a high school age child and you only have 6 years in the Army, you would almost have to wait to 10 years for them to use the benefit. But with the benefit comes so many other benefits. Anything that we can get, the BAH, the book stipends, all of that, your spouse, your child, they receive that. So it's a really phenomenal thing if you're utilizing TA, going on the Ignite website now, and we've just changed to Ignite with credentials assistance and TA. I think the credential assistance is amazing, especially going forward. A lot of people don't care what your degree is in; they want to know what credentials you have, right? Especially in the IT world, in the industry. That this is huge. The direction the Army is going. I think
Absolutely.
It's amazing.
And not to take it too far from that, but, I sat on a promotion board yesterday, and every last one of those soldiers, I believe, who came through had a degree. One was in clinical psychology. And to Master Sergeant Savage's point, if you have – many soldiers have degrees in fields that they're not working in. And so that's why that credentialing process becomes so important. And I will say, as somebody who has sent 2 children to college with the post 9/11 GI Bill, it is a awesome tool. I mean, you don't have to worry about it. They're not stressing about money and stuff like that. I make an agreement with my kids that, hey, we'll reassess after every year, whether I'm going to continue to use it. So it is a really good benefit.
Yeah, I would say, too, that it almost, like, looking at it for my son who has my post 9/11, sometimes it almost seems like too good to be true when you factor in the Yellow Ribbon program and you look at how many colleges that he would pay for, basically everything, too.
Right.
And really without the post 9/11 schools that you would never even think of. It's like, well, I can't pay for that, just out of pocket. College has gotten so expensive.
The education incentives alone are phenomenal. And one of the other sides of transferring education benefits really are, it was brought up to us, and it was an unfortunate situation, but a a soldier died in war, was never had 3 kids, never was able to transfer his education benefits. Spouse really wanted to receive that, like, how can my kids? So they started the Fry Scholarship. The soldier's name was Fry. And now up to, I think, 3 kids get full rides if, you were killed in action. So the systems are coming in place for, like you said, the yellow ribbon. You have states that, like Texas, that are full rides. And you can still use the post 9/11 to get the BAH benefit, the book stipend benefit. Those are available. So it's really an amazing, the way ahead, it's exciting.
And we're going to take a quick break now. We're going to come back and talk more about retention with Master Sergeant Matt Savage and Sergeant Major Adam Bartlett right here on the Every Soldier Counts podcast.
Hi, this is Major Victoria Camary, 19th ESC's Deputy Staff Judge Advocate. It's that time again, tax season. The Area 4 Tax Center is currently open to complete state and federal tax returns for service members, dependents, retirees, and surviving family members. Make sure to bring the following documents with you: your ID card, Social Security number or individual taxpayer identification number for yourself, your spouse, and all dependents, all W-2s, 1099s, 1098s, and Affordable Care Act documents, a copy of last year's federal and state tax returns, and your bank routing and account number for direct deposit. There are certain returns that are beyond the scope of what the tax center may complete. For questions, call DSN 763-4442. The tax center closes on 30 April, so make sure to book your appointment today. Again, call DSN 763-4442.
And we're back with the 19th ESC retention team of Master Sergeant Matt Savage and Sergeant Major Adam Bartlett right here on the Every Soldier Counts podcast. And Sergeant Major, something we've talked about before is the assignment of choice program that you're kind of linked in. What can you tell me about that and what the goal for that program is?
So Korea, the assignment of choice, has been my life for the past 7 to 8 months. And really, it's something that USFK wants to look at. How do we make Korea the assignment of choice, and how do we incentivize soldiers to extend their tours here on the peninsula? So it started off kind of just as a conversation between myself and the CG. And the CG, General Allen's premier objective is to lower the turnover during the summer bowls period, which is July to October, where we receive an influx of soldiers, and unfortunately we see a lot of soldiers depart. Even for us at the senior level, all the sergeants major leave within about 6 weeks of each other in the summer. So it's not just a junior enlisted thing. It's not just a NCO thing. It's literally a Korea deal. If you're a senior personnel, generally you're moving during the summer because you have the children and stuff like that. So what we wanted to do was analyze how do we incentivize soldiers' families to stay here an additional year. What I probably did not understand at that time. It sounded like something easy, well, hey, let's see what school we can give them, and if they agree to serve 12 months, then we'll do it. Well, what it actually required was for me and my team to literally rip open and break apart every phase of the process of a soldier's tour in Korea, the cradle to the grave, as we like to say, in our world. And so what we found were there are 4 specific transition periods for soldiers as they come down on assignment instructions for Korea all the way until they're on the plane leaving the peninsula. And so the first one is sponsorship. The Army sponsorship program, Total Army sponsorship program, covers sponsorship, how we are required to sponsor soldiers as they come down on assignment. So the sponsorship piece, I come down on assignment. I'm most of the time it's 180 days from report date that a soldier receives assignment instructions. If you're like myself, I got them probably about 60 days before before report date for my assignment instructions. That 120-day period, 4 months, from generally our standard 180-day before report to some of those quick fuse assignments, 30, 60 days, that 4-month gap is when a soldier would be looking at command sponsorship here to the peninsula, running the EFMP process if they have the exceptional family members that require additional care and resources here on the peninsula. So the sponsorship portion is our first opportunity to reach out to a soldier, welcome them to Team 19 in our case, and start to lay out exactly what our organization does, what it means where every soldier counts, and we're planting kind of that seed into them as far as we're looking forward to you and your family's arrival and how can we assist. The second phase is reception integration. So that's when the soldier lands either at Incheon or Osan Air Base here on the peninsula. Now, due to COVID-19, we're dealing with quarantine and some additional requirements that previously weren't needed. So we're ripping apart reception integration. How can we better receive personnel and integrate them into Team 19? We are also discovering that this is the time where we want to put out there a potential incentive for soldiers to attend a school, ASI producing school, or just a career development school on Peninsula up at Camp Humphreys. They offer a bunch of courses up there. And then off Penn, we're talking the ASIs with the MP battalion. They have a lot of military police and investigator skill sets and things like that. But that's when we want to plant the seed. We want to welcome the family, welcome the soldier, get them integrated into the organization. The third phase, which is the longest, that's the soldier development. How are we developing potential and personnel on the peninsula for two reasons. Number one, to better be prepared to fight tonight if it came to that. But the second reason is, what are we producing and sending back to FORSCOM, USERPAC, and TRADOC, or U.S. Army Europe? What is the war fighter, the state of the war fighter that we're sending out of here? Because believe it or not, a lot of personnel, this is their first duty assignment fresh out of AIT. This is their first encounter with the Army. Those of us who've been in the Army a while understand career kind of has its own dynamic, just based off of you have to be ready to go to war at any moment. But how we prepare those soldiers to go forward to their next duty assignment, prepared, developed, promotable in some cases, to go out there and lead formations in the FORSCOM, USERPAC, USER world. And so that obviously is a critical piece of what we're doing. And I would add on to one of the reasons why it's even more important is that gets to the perception of Korea. We hear people when they get here, this is what I heard about Korea. Mm-hmm. Korea's a bad assignment. You know, the best way to make sergeant is to go as a staff sergeant. All those things that we've heard. Those are things that come from people who served in Korea and have transitioned back to another unit and spoke about Korea and their experiences. So developing the soldier professionally, personally, getting after the holistic fitness approach, all of those things are vital in the development phase. The fourth phase is transition. Everybody, for the most part, will leave this peninsula. If they stay, most of them are voluntarily. There are some people who get into some involuntary circumstances, but everybody will leave. And it's understanding that all of those ways that we transition off of the peninsula are important, and that everybody's treated with dignity and respect on the way out of the door, because again, that transition process is what's fresh in that service member's mind when they show up to a new unit.
Right.
And so how we transition them through the PCS process, retirement, involuntary separation. We've dealt with some qualitative management program, QMP notifications. All of those are significant emotional events, and how we do those four things, sponsorship, reception, development, and transition, increase the potential for Korea to be an assignment of choice.
Yeah. I you know, he said it best, is what you hear about Korea before you come to Korea. As a senior NCO for both of us, I was excited. And I was in Iraq beginning of 2020, and I was sitting next to a CSM. And I knew I was coming to Korea. I just didn't know when, because we went on New Year's Eve to Iraq. So I was just waiting for our presidential situation and everybody to say, okay, you can go home. And then I'd find out when I was coming to Korea. But I was sitting next to the CSM every day, and he would just tell me about the food. He'd tell me about how much he loved it. I didn't hear one bad thing he said. And And I look at and I see other senior leaders, battalion command sergeants major, and they say the same things, like the great times they had. It was the mid-level in the formations that said all the terrible things. And I was looking forward to it. I love food and I love traveling, and I did not know that there was COVID coming. So, and we came to Korea at, I think, the best time. And soldiers now get a chance to come here. They've got it, Other than the COVID restriction, they've gotten rid of the curfew because we're allowing soldiers to experience this because we want them to go back to the formations and really talk about the integration, not just with their unit, but the integration with the culture. Understanding that, respecting that, walking, doing things. We have such a blessing in Daegu that, Sergeant Major and I, we joked to our friends in Pyeongtaek at Camp Humphreys. I said, we have to drive through Korea to get to work. We don't wake up and walk across the street. We wake up, drive, through the city, seeing the bread, seeing everybody on their scooters. We experience Korea, and then we get to work. To me, that's what this is about. And the CG and Sergeant Major, they've been working directly together to make Korea assignment of choice. And for my job, since this has been his baby, is really I want to help promote stabilization here. So re-enlistment stabilization, what can we incentivize? Are there different ways to incentivize? What you being a PAO, what school could I send you to incentivize you to stay here? Okay, with COVID, can I send you back to the States, or is it offered on the peninsula? So those types of things, we, like he said, we thought it was going to be really quick and easy. Like, this is easy, but it's really intricate, and we're putting in the effort because we want to see soldiers stay. And the turnover, if you think about it, if look at any deployment, when you rip in and out, stuff's lost. And I can tell you, as a senior NCO, I spent my first 3 months building something, walking around, shaking hands, meeting people. Who are the key players out here? Who's going to help our soldiers? Then I spent the next 3 months, ensuring that those relationships got better and forged them. And then now I'm on my downwards, slope. Like your first 6 months, you're really building your foundation. And after that, the next 3 months, the house is put on the plot. But you really don't get to see the roof until you leave, and somebody else might not like your floor plan. So they might want to start it all over. That's, where if we can incentivize and everybody can see what we have around us, we can finish the houses. And then we can have a neighborhood, like of nice houses. And people are like, wow, I really like living here. I got a great house. I think that's my small mind. That's how I think of it.
Right, and I agree. I thought back to one of the highest stabilization rates that I had as a career counselor. I was at 40%, which is pretty high, when I was stationed at Hunter Army Airfield in Savannah, Georgia. And I can tell you, I spent 6 years at Hunter. We deployed out of the door 3 times. There wasn't a great taking to the unit op tempo, but people loved Savannah.
Yeah.
People loved the location. They loved where it was at. It was a great time in Savannah when you got to see Savannah. And so I've taken some of that with me here as far as the quality of life aspect of this. If soldiers have a good quality of life that supports command sponsorship, that supports, obviously EFMP, we're a little hands tied, but if we can support those things and provide a overall quality of life, because all 4 of those pillars are talking quality of life through those processes. If I had a terrible sponsorship experience, by the time I get here, I have preconceived notions that reception and integration, that first time I step off the plane, is going to do one of 2 things. It's either going to validate those preconceived notions or it's going to change them. Mm-hmm. If my reception and integration thing didn't go well, which quarantine is rough, I've been there, to be isolated for 2 weeks. But if there are added aggravating factors to that, And then I come down on a bus from Camp Humphreys to Area 4, and there's nobody there to greet me, right? Now it all starts to build to where I'm just looking, now all I'm focused on is my DROS. I asked a soldier recently, I said, hey, when's your DROS? And they didn't know. And I was like, really? That was something different to me, because most soldiers that you ask when you DROS, they know the exact day.
They don't know their ETS, but they know their DROS.
Exactly. I know on this date I get to go home. And so when I met that soldier, I said, this person has had a good quality of life throughout the process, because they don't even know when they're leaving. So, I mean, there are ways that we change the game. And the CG and Sergeant Major understand that how we provide quality of life directly translates and correlates to career being an assignment of choice.
Well, it's really exciting to see what you two both are helping to build here at not only 19th, but, Area 4 Korea as a whole. And I think it can reach up, Penn wide, this plan that you both have. So you two obviously have a lot of answers to give to soldiers if they want to come to you. What's the best way to get in touch with either of you if they have questions?
So the best way is if they want to call our office, it's DSN 315-763-4010, 4012, and 4013. If you call any one of those numbers, we're happy to answer and help. The other one is to check out our Facebook page, and I think I always forget if it's Team 19. We tried out a few names, and I didn't get him right the first time.
I think it's 19th Expeditionary. This name is, I'm with you now.
It's 19th ESC Retention Team.
That's it.
So if you look us up on Facebook, send us a message. We actually all have it on our phone, so we respond really quick. And that, it's social media, right? Mm-hmm. If we could link podcasts to it, and you get a DM through a podcast, we would too. We are available to the people. That's the best way to put it. That's the easiest way to get a hold of us. We love providing input, and I know Sergeant Major and you invite us somewhere and put us in front of soldiers, we're going to be there. So that's something also I would say we provide. We provide guest speaker, we provide mentorship, LPD training. That is something we really enjoy doing, because I said it before, and it falls right in line with the Korea assignment choice, but we will ensure every soldier is notified and briefed on what the Army's doing, what retention's doing. And I think that's the weird hat we wear. We were talking about that Facebook Live earlier, and we wear so many hats, but we're really in touch with if policy is about to change in the Army, we know. So we know things sometimes sooner than it gets pushed out live, and we can see the changes coming. We can predict things. So we have a lot of valuable information to provide commanders, first sergeants, platoon sergeants, and at the lowest echelon. We just don't brief the battalion leadership and above. We want to talk to the soldiers, because I think we were all young soldiers one time, and that was the worst thing is you waited until 1600 to be told what all needed to be done that day. I will make that change in my career, is that I will ensure the lowest level finds out something at 9:30, not at 1600. So we want to push info.
Right, absolutely. And I would just highlight something Sergeant Savage was kind of alluding to there, and we talked it right before we walked in here. We're not just retention people. A lot of people see us, I don't want to re-enlist, I'm not eligible. We're not here to talk. I rarely talk re-enlistment to anybody. I want to know what their needs, wants, desires are. Tell me about what it is that you want to accomplish, what it is that you want to achieve. We're career counselors by trade, and sometimes, a lot of times, the conversations we have start off maybe from a retention standpoint, but in order to get a soldier to commit, whether it's assignment of choice or re-enlistment, you have to understand what their underlying issues are, what their influences are, if it's family, if it's current squad leader, chain of command, whatever it is. What are those positive, negative influencers, which generally to overcome those, that's where the counselor part comes in.
Right.
And we counsel people, it seems like, they drop the career, you become financial counselors, counselors, counselor, and things like that. But it's getting at the underlying issue, getting them the assistance they need to overcome whatever that may be. So yes, at the end they will re-enlist and stay Team 19.
All right, very good. And I wanted to just thank you both again for coming by, and we had a lot to talk about. We'll have you back again. We'll talk even more. And so, once again, these are the guys with the answers, Sergeant Major Adam Bartlett and Master Sergeant Matt Savage. So their doors open, their comms are open on social media. Thanks again for coming by, and thanks again for listening to the Team 19 Every Soldier Counts podcast. We'll talk to you next time. And again, I want to thank the 19th ESC retention team, Sergeant Major Bartlett, Master Sergeant Savage, for coming by. And if you haven't yet, please subscribe to the Every Soldier Counts podcast wherever you find podcasts. And please find us on Facebook at 19th Expeditionary Sustainment Command. Thanks again for listening to the Every Soldier Counts podcast.